Happy St George's Day. 41% of people in a recent poll said that one of the reasons that England's National Day is not celebrated more is that it is not a bank holiday. Well, we in UKIP intend to put that right. As you can see from our manifesto, we will declare St George's Day a bank holiday and similarly St David's Day a bank holiday in Wales. This new bank holiday will provide a much-needed, popular and completely inclusive opportunity for people to come together, to celebrate if they want to express pride in our values, our history and our achievements. We in UKIP have no inhibition in celebrating these things, and we believe that neither does the public. A country is not just its economy, and its identity cannot just be read on a balance sheet. We believe in our hearts and our minds that this is a great country to be proud of and part of. But for too long, I think we have lived with a political and cultural establishment which has shown a sort of disdain for England, which has doubted Britain as a whole and has discouraged pride in it. Their embarrassment about our past, their lack of concern for our history, has permeated our culture. So now, many young people know little about the country in which they live. The patriotism of the many is often sneered at. We have a society which seems to live in a state of cultural cringe. People have been encouraged to believe that national pride is exclusive, or that it's dangerous, or that it's bigoted, and should therefore be discouraged. Indeed, we have seen in recent years instances where the displaying of the flag was discouraged for fear of causing offence. The truth is, there is no evidence whatsoever that any part of our society, or any ethnic or religious minority, has in any way ever taken offence. Instead, people have often taken offence on their behalf, when it has not been asked for or needed. It was George Orwell who famously wrote that the English intelligentsia was unique in the world in its distaste for its own nationality. They would rather steal from a poor box, he said, than stand for the national anthem. This finds its modern equivalent in the contempt for the national pride of ordinary people, which we have seen very recently. Emily Thornberry's infamous tweet summed up much of this attitude. The simple displaying of an English flag was enough in her eyes to condemn the people who had put it there. But we in UKIP reject this negativity. We think that such cultural self-loathing is destructive. We believe that benign patriotism is a force for good, a force for unity. We saw this in the summer of 2012, when people came together to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee and the Olympics. However, such events as those are few and far between. A new annual national holiday on St George's Day is the perfect way of establishing a regular date on our national calendar which will further increase a sense of unity throughout the country. A totally inclusive unity for everybody living in our country. We believe that this will prove enormously popular. The old parties have not listened to the increasing numbers of people who believe we should mark St George's Day. They do not take it seriously. We in UKIP do, because we believe it too. Thank you very much, and happy St George's Day.
Patrick.
Joe.
How are you
Can I call you Joko?
No. Joe Coburn, Daily Politics. How are you going to be celebrating St George's Day? What do you say to those who claim a public holiday will damage the economy? And can I see you wear one of these hats?
Shall we try to do the mental feat of answering them in reverse order? So the first answer will be no, I'm not going to put one of those hats on. I think the depiction might be a little harsh. I think the first one was I'll jump back to the first one. I hope to have a pint of London Pride in the local pub close to our headquarters and toast St George and England and Englishness briefly at lunchtime. On the economic point, Well, actually, I don't accept that there's necessarily any net economic loss at all. In fact, plenty of studies have shown that these national days, public holidays, give a big consumer boost to the economy. And I know that's one of the things that the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee sometimes worries about is, the lack of consumer spending. Well, on the consumer side, certainly, sales and therefore production in advance of a public holiday of certain commodities, whether it's some of the tasteful memorabilia that you've got, or whether it's food and drink, will go up, and it will be a boost, or flag makers will get a boost to business. So it's not just a matter of a net loss. And if we're talking about the shape of the economy anyway, we're not anymore in a totally inflexible factory production line era where any stoppage involves, mothballing long production lines, and we have much more flexible arrangements, and people, if there is extra work, can make up the time as and when. So I don't accept there's any net cost at all, but nonetheless some things are important than, a tiny incremental change in that week's economic output, and we believe that St George's Day is well worth adding to the ranks of public holidays.
What do you... Can I hold it, please? Okay. So I can't hold the microphone. Well, I'm 43 years old. Can I ask you, Patrick, two things? Peter.
Yes.
You talked about cultural self-loathing. What's an example of that, apart from the Emily Thornberry tweet? And also, in your manifesto, you talk about teaching a chronological understanding of British history. What does that mean, exactly?
Well, I think to take the first point, I think that, quite often now we sort of say, well, we should teach our values, promote our values, and that seems to be a pretty mainstream a message that's given across. But I think the best way of teaching those is actually as a story, and they should sort of emerge, really. You can't sort of sit people down and say, well, this is, freedom of speech, and this is equality before the law. These things sort of emerge through knowing, if you like, the chronological history of something. And I think that's why I think that that's very important.
You start William the Conqueror, do you, when you're 7, and you finish with the Queen when you leave school at 11?
Well, I don't know, that'd have to be set, but it would be quite good to go back before William the Conqueror, I think. But I think that the point is, particularly if you think that this year we're celebrating the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. It's from that so many things flow, and I think that you pick up from a kind of, it's a little bit like a human life, an individual life. The characteristics and the values and beliefs or whatever emerge over a period of time. So that's why it's, I think, important not to have these things as topics that just stand there like that randomly.
So what history shouldn't be taught in schools?
Shouldn't?
Yes, the Nazis are taught in schools, for example. Should not be taught in schools? What history shouldn't be taught in schools?
Oh, I don't think any history should not be taught. I'm not.
One for one, so if you're teaching more about Britain, what should be taught?
I think obviously British history, the full sweep of British history, I think, should be taught because, we have to, in a way, sort of pass on our story, to people coming. I mean, coming after us. The sense is that a country, in some ways, is, people in the past, people in the present, and people in the future. So you have to sort of, I think, carry that on. I think that's terribly important, but all history is good.
Answer on that other question.
Oh, sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry,
Yeah, you talked there about cultural self-loathing. You referenced the Emily Thornberry tweet. What other examples do you have of that?
Well, I think it's sort of... Yes, I think that it's there's a sense really that somehow when it comes to patriotism, for example, that a perfectly ordinary, benign patriotism is now, many people do feel slightly worried or slightly concerned that if they say that they're proud of the country, they're immediately going to be cast as somehow racist or bigoted or whatever. And I think that's obviously completely and utterly untrue. And indeed, you have to ask, well, where has that sort of come from? I mean, why would that be the automatic assumption? And I think that, that is partly because over the past decades, that has been the general sort of approach of a kind of, maybe I would say, excessive criticism of Britain, of our history. And I think that in some ways, you know, now we've actually, if you've got to like redress the balance, really. I think people in this country have always been extraordinarily welcoming. They've always been extraordinarily open also to the world. And indeed, when Demos did a survey about patriotism some time ago, I think it was Demos, sorry, it was found that actually one of the reasons that people were patriotic about Britain was in fact the fact that we were so welcoming to people from outside.
I think as well, Chris, the underplaying of St George's Day by the establishment parties, which we seek to correct, is a pretty clear example of a discomfort and maybe a worry that the English form a very high proportion of the people of the United Kingdom, and somehow the Englishness needs to be repressed rather than celebrated.
That's also finally.
Yeah.
Are you saying that flying the Scottish flag is seen by some as means you're racist or something like that? What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that's what Emily Thornberry was certainly implying, wasn't it? I think, possibly. Well, no, I mean, or that somehow, I think there's a sort of snobbery, you know, as it were, about, you know, showing your pride in your country. Is it somehow or other this is a vulgar thing, or, you know, it's...
Why is it linked to racism? I don't understand the link between the flag and racism.
No, I think there is no link, but I think, no, absolutely no link. But I think that some people certainly feel that they should be worried about flying the flag because they don't want, you know, they have imbibed this message that somehow this is an exclusive thing to do. We don't think it is.
So, Sanjay Suri from CNN, IBN television in India. People of Indian origin form the largest minority in Britain. Mm-hmm. There are reports to suggest that their per capita contribution to the economy is higher than average. We've recently had a fairly high migration from India of professionals in IT, in manufacturing, other businesses. Does UKIP welcome all this?
Well, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. You know, why wouldn't we? Absolutely.
Can I just say, I mean, our approach to immigration begins with the priority, what's good for Britain and the British people. So we'll bring in an Australian-style point system that will prioritise people with skills that the economy needs. And yes, it's very good news when people with high-level skills that are in short supply come and add value to the British economy. But what we won't do is simply say that the first priority should be who wants to come to our country. The first priority is to look after the British people and make sure the people who do come, as in the experts you're talking about, are people whose skills are needed and can add value and will accept the sort of core cultural values of the country too.
Alison Little, Daily Express. UKIP has had a reputation amongst its detractors for, you've been branded sort of bigoted and racist and so on. When you go out campaigning on the doorstep, do you still find a lot of people who assume that, or do you think more exposure about your wider policies is challenging that view, and are you finding a better reception?
Well, I would say that that view among certain of the news media, you know, is not reflected on the doorsteps. You know, we're the party that won the European elections. We're the party that has had spectacular success in parliamentary by-elections, winning 2 out of the last 3 and coming within a whisker in a purportedly rock-solid, safe Labour seat. So we find that many more people are very positive and very grateful about us raising the issues that they've told they shouldn't be talking about and shouldn't be raising. Yes, there are a very small minority of people, you know, with avowedly kind of socialist in the main leanings who will resort to abuse, but we always try on the doorsteps and engage in political debate. We don't expect everyone to agree with us, and quite often even someone who starts out hostile rarely will leave saying they're now a lifelong voter, any interaction, but will have gained respect from us for being willing to talk about the issues.
If you hadn't been born now, when in British history
have been born? When do you think would have been the when would have been the sort of when did we have it most right?
Oh, is that for me? Sorry.
Yes.
I can't think of wanting to be in any time other than now. No, I don't have any kind of sort of sense of sort of nostalgia or anything like that.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking if you were talking so much about the importance of history, if you could have been born in any other time, which one would you have chosen?
Well, I'm being honest with you. I can't think of what. Well, no, I absolutely like being alive now, and I like Britain now.
Would you like me to answer that as well, Marina? Okay. Well, equally, I think it's by far the best time to be alive is right now. You know, there have been so many advances in, you know, technology, culture, living standards in general, although perhaps not in the last decade. So if you asked me to choose another era, I suppose I would just choose a very recent one, that perhaps to have been born in 1945 rather than 1965, and then have been old enough to have fully taken in and enjoyed England winning the World Cup in 1966.
I'm Pollyanna, and I'd like to ask, why don't children get the vote? Because people say that they don't know enough about politics. My old babysitter, she didn't know who Nigel Farage was, and she's just about heard of David Cameron. So why don't children get the vote?
Right, well, sorry, is it Leanna?
No, it's Pollyanna.
Pollyanna. Well, that's an excellent question, and I must say one of the best questions I've had, and many allegedly more experienced journalists, I'm sure, could learn a lot. There has to be, across a whole range of activities in our society, there has to be an age where an activity is considered, you know, legitimate. For instance, driving, it's 17. These days, going out to fight for your country is 18, although in the past it's been, you know, recent past it's been as young as 16. I personally think that 18 is the right age for people getting the vote. I understand that some people, you know, have a much lower level of knowledge about politics than some others who may be much younger than them. But I just believe, as a, you know, adulthood in society is the point of 18, and that's the point where people should be able to vote. And there'll always be, I think, a natural annoyance among people who are said to be too young to take part in whatever the activity is. And all I can compensate you with the thought that, you know, time takes care of that.
Hi. Oh, sorry. I'm Sebastian Payne from The Spectator. I just wanted to, obviously UKIP is painting itself as one of a very patriotic party. There's another party north of the border who are also swelling national pride, the SNP. Do you think it's fair to describe UKIP as the SNP of England?
What would that be, like the ENP or something? But, by the way, I enjoyed your tweet last night, Sebastian, where you named your boss twice in the same tweet. I thought that was excellent. No, well, I don't think the parallels are there, are they? Because we're a party that believes in the United Kingdom, not in simply one nation of the United Kingdom.
They wanted to stop throwing money over Hadrian's Wall and scrap the Barnett formula.
Yeah, we think the funding settlement of the Barnett formula is unfair, and we note that this public spending per head in Scotland is some £1,400 higher, and you'll see from our 5-year fiscal plan, but by the end of the Parliament we would be saving £5.5 billion on that. But no, our preference is, as a party that believes in the UK, and we're standing candidates in every nation of the UK, and we have indeed, you know, elected representation in every nation. So I don't think that parallel holds at all. I think the SNP agenda is much narrower and you know, more parochial.
So one thing can you just name one thing you've done for Scotland? Because a lot of the rhetoric has been very has been quite abrasive towards Scotland from UKIP of late.
Well, what we've done for Scotland is given them an extra party to choose, and you know, the good people of Scotland elected an MEP in the UKIP colours who's definitely kind of broadened the range of issues being discussed.
Jack Doyle from the Mail. Apologies if you covered this before I came in.
Yeah.
Do you think there's more place for patriotism in schools? Do you think, like in America, we could sort of sing the national anthem in the morning, or other sort of displays of patriotism in classrooms?
I think that obviously we're a different country to America, you know, you can't suddenly plant something like that down in a country that's much older and, you know, has different ways of doing things. All I would say is what I said earlier, actually, which was that, you know, a basic understanding of our past, you know, and our history, that is very, very important. And I think that, you know, in a way, people can then make their own minds up. But I think they do have to know the backstory, as a screenwriter would call it, of their country and the country they're living in.
Morning, Lindsay Watling from the Press Association. It's a question for both of you. I just wanted to simply ask what Englishness means to you both. What does it mean to you to be English?
Yes, to be English for me means living in a country that's open, that's fair, that's decent and democratic. You know, this is the country notoriously where people do stand in orderly queues. It's a country of understated affinity to neighbourhood and neighbour as well, and that sense of social solidarity is very important to me. And indeed, that's one reason why I think, you know, we need to look very carefully about whether that social cohesion is all it might be. And I know, for instance, many working class communities, particularly outside the capital and maybe in the north of England, that's one real regret, is that sense of solidarity, even depicted, you know, in you know, some of the post-war fiction or on Coronation Street in the early days, that's depicting something that we're in danger of losing. So I think that sense of neighbourliness and understated togetherness is very important to me, as well as, of course, celebrating the amazing achievements of England in terms of, you know, inventors, artists, in literature, you know, creating the world's foremost language, and indeed, you know, being a big contribution of, you know, defeating tyranny down the ages. So those are the things I'd pick out.
I would add to that the point about fairness, actually. You know, a lot of our discussion about issues now, and indeed it's reflected in our manifesto, it just simply comes down to a matter of what's fair, you know, and how things should be shared and those sorts of things. But more specifically in answer to your question, I think that what it seems to be about England that I particularly treasure is this sort of strange way in which it manages to, you know, maintain in its borders sort of a very, if you like, royal and you know, pageantry-strewn tradition, at the same time as a very radical tradition that's gone through British and English history from the very, very start. And I think that that's extraordinary. And I'd also add to that a kind of form of pragmatism, you know, a distaste for ideology and a kind of pragmatic approach to political things. I treasure that about England.
Can you do it in one word? What's it mean to English in one word, as it distinct being British?
That's an interesting little test you set us there. I prefer to go away and think about the word rather than just chuck one in off the top of my head. Have you got one?
No, I'm asking.
Ah, well, there you go. That's easy, isn't it? I'll report back a word later in the day, Christopher.
Can I have a question for both of you? Michael, you can take it.
Yeah.
St George was born in what is now Turkey. Would
Yes.
the 3rd century UKIP have blocked St George from entering Britain, or would you have considered him a skilled migrant, sort of filling a hole in the British workforce for a time?
I really don't know how to answer that question. I mean, it's a kind of thing that the political left in this country, which I don't know whether you would class yourself as within those broad remits or not, but whenever the issue of St George's Day comes up, and I can predict this on Twitter today, there will be many left-of-centre people who just tweet the fact that St George is from what's today known as Turkey, as if that's, you know, the start-finish of conversation, and that makes St George's Day irrelevant or illegitimate or ridiculous. And, you know, I completely disagree. So I guess the answer to that, I'm not particularly hung up on where St George came from. I'm sort of more interested in what St George's Day can represent.
So he would be a skilled miser then?
Well, I guess dragon slaying is a definite skill, but whether it's one that's in short supply for the needs of the British economy, we'll leave to our Migration Commission.
Patrick, when you talked about UKIP's only Scottish MEP, you seemed to raise your eyebrows. I mean, David Coburn, as a man, seems to just set out to offend people. Do you feel uncomfortable being in the same party as him? And the second question is, do you think that people who live in the UK who aren't from England should be given less priority for school places or housing waiting lists? Do you think someone who's moved here from Scotland, say, should have less likelihood of getting their first choice of primary school?
Well, on the issue of David Coburn, he stood for election and he got elected by the Scottish people. I'm very proud of him for that. He has made some mistakes and he's apologised for those mistakes. So I don't think that there's any beating round the bush about that whatsoever.
You don't personally feel uncomfortable with him being in the same political party as you?
I don't personally feel uncomfortable, no. Okay. Right. On the other thing, you're talking about priority for public services. I think, and then you mentioned someone from Scotland. Well, you know, we have a United Kingdom, don't we? And UKIP believes in the United Kingdom. So I don't think there's any distinction between the right of someone from Scotland and the right of someone from England to access public services.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.